What do you do when you get that call that we all dread? I got one from my sister saying, "Hey Simone, I don't think Dad's going to make it." So I rang him up, and many of you may have seen the video about how I traced him and how he lives in Jamaica and I'm in the UK, so we don't get to see each other very often. So I rang him up and I said, "Hey Dad, how's things?" And he said, "Oh, one step at a time." And that's what he always says, and he always remains really positive, but I could hear from his voice that he was very weak. And I said, my sister says that you're not feeling too good, and I was wondering if I could come over and see you again. And he said, "Yes, my dear, that would be lovely, but don't hang around. Don't, if you're thinking of coming, you better come quickly." And for my dad, that's really, really unusual. We're always welcome there, but he's always so positive about his health and so buoyant. And, he says, every day is better than the day before. And in fact, 4 years ago, we got this call, and my sister said then, he's really not doing well. And he phoned me and he said, the doctor says they've done all they can. He'd been in hospital and his heart was playing up and his blood pressure was through the roof. And I went over there then to treat him. I took my acupuncture needles and herbs and whatever else. And he responded really, really well. And he said at that time and ever since that he really believes the acupuncture saved his life. He said it was just remarkable. So I thought, well, it worked 4 years ago. He's overdue an appointment by now, so let's just see. And he's in his early 80s, so he was just 82 a couple of weeks before I went. And I thought it's a big ask because he has had heart problems and digestive problems, and he's got weaker over the years that I haven't seen him, because 4 years ago was the last time that I saw him, and 10 years before that was the previous time. As I said, I didn't trace my dad until I was 30. I didn't know who he was and he didn't know about me. And so we haven't had the opportunity to see each other in person many times, but we speak on the phone or on WhatsApp. And my goodness me, that man knows what I'm thinking before I even think it. We are so close in spite of the geographic distance between us. And that stands to reason. If you've seen the video I made about the prophetic dream that I had that led me to find him against the odds, then maybe that'll give you some understanding of just the level of connection we have. And so the timing really wasn't great. But then when is there ever the right time to be ill or to be dying or anything else, So I went over there. My husband wasn't able to come and my daughter had exams. My son had exams, but he just said, "Yeah, never mind, I'm coming over anyway." So my son and I went over to see my dad in Jamaica. And when we arrived, he was so weak that he couldn't even stand up to greet us. He was very pleased to see us, but he couldn't get up out of his chair. And to see such a strong, strong man in that situation with his legs terribly swollen, the skin on his legs paper thin, and him just trying his best to smile, it was really, really hard. But I just thought, well, I'm here to do what I can, and if what I can do is just to be with him, then so be it. It was only the 5th time in my life that we'd met in person, but each time we meet is just so rich and so precious that to have 2 weeks with him, where it was mostly going to be just him and me chatting and me finding out more about him and about my history and my heritage, just sitting on the veranda chatting together. That was a gift, a very precious, precious time that I thought would probably be the last. However, after a few days, he did consent to have acupuncture, and I said to him, "But it worked last time." And he said, "Yes, it does work, it does work." And I said, "Dad, you scared of needles?" And he said, well, my dear. So anyway, you know, there comes a point when people get more scared of their illness than they are of needles. And so anyway, I did the tongue diagnosis on my dad, and I took his pulses. And what was striking this time was that my dad's pulses were very, very different from 4 years ago, when his blood pressure was through the roof and his heart was just in overdrive. Because 4 years ago, when I took his pulses, I can honestly say from that day to this, from the day I picked up my first acupuncture needle, that was the scariest treatment I've ever done, because it was as though my dad didn't have a proper pulse. It was just kind of rattling through his veins, but there was no ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. It was just boom, 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 boom. And I just thought, oh my goodness, he quite literally could just have a stroke or a heart attack just like that. But he didn't then. He responded really well. And this time when I went over, his pulses were actually much stronger. And I thought, this doesn't make sense. Why does he seem to be so ill and so weak? But actually his pulse diagnosis is good. His tongue diagnosis is okay, it's treatable. So what's going on here? And so I palpated his stomach, and partly looking for, again, the channels of energy. You can do a bit of abdominal diagnosis, but also just feeling what was going on in his gut. And it was rock solid. I've never felt anything like it. To the extent that I thought, wow, maybe there's a huge tumour here that just hasn't been diagnosed. And if that's the case, then, you know, it's over to conventional medicine. But if it's not, and if this is indigestion or something else, then the acupuncture and the nutrition and the herbs can help. Now, one of the other symptoms that he had, which was really causing him a lot of problems, was fluid on his lungs. So whenever he did try to get up and walk across the room, he just couldn't catch his breath. And as he was breathing, I could hear his lungs rattling. And I thought, yeah, you know, it sounds like kind of congestive heart failure with the swollen ankles, the rattling lungs, and a history of heart problems. But I couldn't get over this swelling, this solid, really solid abdominal area. So I began treating him, and it's true to say that he did not respond as quickly as he had done 4 years ago. And I wouldn't expect him to, because he was very weak. But he did respond, and he did start to feel better. And his bowels did, he said, I don't know what's going on. This is the next day. He said, I don't know what's going on in there, but something's happening. So I treated him each day, and I also gave him some herbs and probiotics to rebalance the gut bacteria. And I did acupuncture and some abdominal massage to help propel the food through, or whatever it was, in the correct direction, because of other things that he told me had been going on. And by about day 2 or 3, he was really starting to feel much better. And actually the fluid cleared up on his lungs. And then he said, as his abdomen started to feel better, he was able to stand more upright and hold himself in a better position. And then, of course, he could breathe more freely. And then there was more space for his digestion, because he'd lifted himself up and out of the kind of the collapsed state where his shoulders had been rounded, his head had been down. He was collapsing into himself. In Chinese medicine, that's your zong qi, that kind of holds you upright. And it was as though the treatment had picked him up like a puppet from the top of the head and just pulled him up and opened the throat, opened the heart, opened the chest space, and released some space in his gut. Then everything started to flow and to move better. Then his digestion improved and his appetite improved. And day after day after day, he got stronger and stronger. And so by week 2 that I was there, he really had improved so much that we were able to go out and about a little bit together. And we went up to, we've got because my family's from Clarendon, or his side of the family is from Clarendon, there's a family plot for the graveyard there, so he took me and he showed me, that's where I'm going to go, right next to my brother. So okay, well, you know, I said that's fine, just don't be in any hurry to get there, okay? And you know, Yaya, my great-grandmother's grave was there. Now she was a real medicine woman, and apparently everybody knew her and respected her, and everybody went to see her if they were unwell, and she knew which herbs to use out of her garden. And so while we were up there, I walked barefoot around the garden just to connect with my roots, connect with my ancestry. And so it was really wonderful to be there and have history come full circle. You may have seen the other videos, but just to recap briefly, I was brought up in the West, very westernized, to do the right thing, to get a good education and a good job for life. And then I had a full-term stillbirth, and when my son Alex died, his funeral was on Christmas Eve in 2001. And from that point on, I said, I don't care what other people think. If I'm going to get out of bed, I want a damn good reason to do so. And health and natural medicine and using food as medicine is all that matters to me. I want to be a herbalist. And so I went to train as a herbalist, but they said to me, oh no, you can't do that, that's postgraduate only. You have to train in acupuncture first, or in traditional Chinese medicine first. So I began my undergraduate degree. I already had an undergraduate degree, but I just began retraining. So I did another degree, which was in acupuncture. Then I did my postgraduate training in herbal medicine. And after I graduated, I set up a business called Barefoot Medicine, after the barefoot doctors in China, actually, who went out to help people who couldn't get healthcare or who couldn't afford conventional medicine. And it just really sat well with me, although I didn't know why, until I traced my dad when I was 30. And then I found out he's Jamaican. He's very, very dark. The only giveaway with me is just that I've got wild hair and a wide nose and thick lips, and I was teased relentlessly. I mean, you know, school was not a great experience for me, and I was teased about all of that. So I set up Barefoot Medicine, but there was still part of me that was frightened of it. And yet somehow in March 2022, when I'm 52, it's taken me all this time to really feel comfortable and step into who I am and become the Barefoot Medicine woman. As I walked around my great-grandmother's garden and I took some guangu beans, apparently it is, from her garden, and cocoa and all sorts of other things that are still growing there. And I've brought them back with me as a way of bringing my heritage and my roots and the spirit of my great-grandmother with me. But to go there with my dad, when I'd gone to Jamaica to try and heal him, was just, you know, that the whole story is just remarkable, how from not knowing any of that side of my family to having a tragedy in my life, making me follow my heart, not my head, and then look where it led. You know, it led me back to Jamaica and to the wilds of Jamaica that I'd been teased about. You know, when I was in school, they used to say, your dad's a jungle bunny and you're a white wog and things like that. And it made me feel ashamed of who I was because I had no answer. I didn't know who my dad was. And I felt frightened to be myself. But something inside me was just too strong to ignore. And then throughout my life, all of these coincidences, a coincidental dream that led me to find my dad across the world, the coincidence of being desperate to be a herbalist and finding out my great-grandmother was a herbalist who lived to be 114, the coincidence of using art as therapy, art for health and well-being, and drawing Penrhyn Castle with a slave holding up the castle because that castle was built on the money from slavery, only to find out that the man who built Penrhyn Castle was the one, his name was Pennant, and that my dad owns land in Pennant in Beckford Crawl, Jamaica. So that plantation that Penrhyn Castle was built on was built on the blood of my ancestors, quite literally. All these coincidences that have happened throughout my life have led to me being the barefoot medicine woman. And so when my dad was taken ill, I went over there to try and heal him as best I could, just naturally, just using whatever we had to hand, herbs, food, acupuncture needles. And I realised with my dad that actually he had digestive problems, and I thought, you know what, I think you're gluten intolerant. And so I changed his diet, I explained what gluten is, and we recruited a carer who's still with him. It's a couple of months later now, she's still with him. She took everything on board. I have a list that I gave to her about what he can eat and what he can't eat. And I'll let you hear from him how he feels and how he felt on the day that I left, because he just wanted to share his side of the story with the whole world about how he's feeling. But suffice to say that a week after getting back from Jamaica, I had a call from him saying, "Oh, hello Simone, hi, I'm just in the post office and I'm on my way to the market." So that's quite a long way from not being able to get out of the chair. So I'll pass it over to my dad now, but for anybody who's in the situation that I was in, where you're told by the hospital, oh, there's nothing more that can be done, or you see somebody and you think that they're dying, they might be, and that might be the kindest thing, and just being with them, holding their hands sometimes is the right thing to do. I went there to hold my dad's hand, but fortunately, and by the grace of my ancestors, I was able to do more than that for him. So I'll let him pick up the story.
Well, how I feel then and how I feel 2 weeks later is 100% different. Much, much, much better than before. Yes, my stomach, the gas has relief a lot.
Yeah.
And I get more burping and more farting. But when I took the medication from the doctor, the blood pressure goes down, but the heart rate goes up.
Okay.
And then they never work balance.
Okay.
With this herbs, it stay one on a level.
So
the improvement within 2 weeks was like night and day. The cream is excellent. Very good. The leg is more comfortable because it's smoother and lighter.
or something, didn't
Yes,
you?
the circulation definitely coming back because I can bend my foot more. Before it was stiff, but now you can see. It's a lot. Big changes. Big changes.
That's what you did, because you really weren't sure about acupuncture at first, were you?
I was against it.
Yeah.
But the very first time you did it.
That was 4 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was a big difference. So
Yeah.
I said, okay, well, I'm going to try it again.
Yeah.
And now I seen a huge difference.
Yeah.
Seabird says you're going to try it when you come next time.
Oh, did?
But you know what I find now? The one for my stomach, bad. When I took it without the medication, it gave me better result. The advice I would give anyone is to try it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't try it, you're not going to know the result.